There were 22 comics with a June 1939 cover date, and Superman #1 led the pack, but there was a bunch of important books released. New York World's Fair Comics, no number edition, 1939, published by DC Comics. This key issue features the first appearance of the Sandman, ever first published. Superman appears on the cover of this book with blonde hair. It's the first time he appears outside of Action Comics. There's artwork by many of the greats in the field, including Bob Kane and Fred Guardineer. This thick annual book had a hefty 25-cent cover price, but was thick with 100 pages. It officially went on sale April 30th, 1939. Giant 96-page square-pound book. The editor was Vincent Sullivan. Superman's first appearance outside of Action Comics, and with miscolored yellow on the cover. The copyright registration for this issue lists April 29th as the publication date, but it was sold only at the New York World's Fair, which opened April 30th. The book stories are all set at the World's Fair. There's a Carson City pedigree copy of this book. Note that many copies have a 15-cent sticker price applied. This was done by DC after the initial sales were slow at the original price of 25 cents. In total, it would appear sales were very high for this book, as a large number of copies have survived, making this one of the most common 1930s comic books. He was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman #1 from DC Comics. The cover features art by Vincent Sullivan and Fred Guardineer, who did the head views. It's an early cover appearance of Superman and Zatana, and the first cover appearance of the Sandman. The Superman story is called Superman at the World's Fair. It's a 12-page story from the team of Siegel and Schuster. It features early appearances of Superman, Clark Kent, Lois Lane, the Chief, who is likely George Taylor, and a villain named Nick Stone. Lois and Clark are assigned to cover the World's Fair, but after Lois is kidnapped, Superman has to take over, both to rescue her from a wanted criminal and make sure the fair is covered properly for the paper. Other interesting strips in this issue include Fairs 1851 to 1939. It's a one-page strip drawn by Sheldon Moldoff. And it reveals such information such as the New York World's Fair covered 1.2 million acres at a cost of $156 million, and they expected 60 million visitors that year. From the Fair Corners is a one-page strip also drawn by Sheldon Moldoff, featuring information about the Trilon and the Perisphere. Hanko the Cowhand is a two-page strip drawn by Craig Flessel. History of the New York World's Fair 1939 is a 6-page text article with art by Craig Flessel. Would You Believe It is a 2-page cartoon drawn by Sheldon Moldoff. Cuff Notes from the Fair is a 2-page cartoon drawn by Sheldon Moldoff, giving us more facts about the World's Fair. Ginger Snap at the New York World's Fair is a 2-page strip written and drawn by Bob Kane. Wonders at the Fair is 2 pages, drawn by Sheldon Moldoff. And this even includes describing an exhibit of a Flash Gordon-style rocket ship that will take visitors to Mars. A Day at the World's Fair with Jim and Jane is an 8-page story drawn by Craig Flessel. Tidbits from the Fair is a 2-page cartoon from artist Sheldon Moldoff. Slam Bradley at the World's Fair is a 12-page story from the team of Siegel and Schuster. The detective mystery features Slam Bradley and Shorty Morgan. Curiosities from the Fair is a 2-page cartoon drawn by Sheldon Moldoff, and again covers the rocket ship exhibit taking visitors to Mars. Sandman appears in a 10-page story. This is the first published comic story of the new superhero title and character Sandman from DC, and it's written by Gardner Fox under the alias Larry Dean with art by Bert Christman. This is an early superhero strip. Wesley Dodds and one of the executive officers at the Dodds-Bessing Steel Corporation are to meet several government agents at the fair and turn over to them plans for a new ray gun. This is the first man story to appear in print and comes out before Adventure Comics number 40. Zatana the Master Magician appears in a 12-page strip written by Gardner Fox with art by Fred Guardineer, and this is the first appearance of Zatana outside of Action Comics. Wonder Comics number 2, June 1939, published by Fox Comics. Yarko the Great begins in this issue, and it's the last issue of this title, which would become Wonder World Comics with issue number 3. Overstreet lists this book as scarce, and Gerber rates it an 8 or rare. This is Lou Fine's first cover, and the issue also features Will Eisner, Bob Powell, and Bob Kane art. This issue went on sale April 28, 1939, and was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman number 1 from DC Comics. The cover features Yarko the Great drawn by Lou Fine in this early superhero cover. And Yarko the Great appears in a 9-page story written and drawn by Will Eisner, who gives us the first appearance of this new superhero magician, Yarko the Great. We also get the characters Carol Tate and the villains Shediba and Doga. And this story would be reprinted in Blue Beetle number 1 in 1940. Minnie the Mermaid is a 2-page story featuring the first appearance, and only appearance in fact, of the strip Minnie the Mermaid. Don Quixote appears in a 2-page strip with his first appearance, also first appearance of Sancho Panza. Shorty Shortcake is an 8-page story written and drawn by Jerry Iger. Charlie Saringo, Men Who Made the West, is a 2-page text article written by Will Eisner. It's a biographical strip. Dr. Fung is a 6-page strip drawn by Bob Powell under the alias Arthur Dean. The Children's Crusade, Part 1, is a 2-page text story written by Will Eisner. Fillmore Dud is a 1-page strip written and drawn by Jerry Iger, one of his short humor strips. Movie Memos is a 1-page strip drawn by Glenda Carroll, a nonfiction strip covering movie stars such as Buddy Ebsen, Gladys Swartout, Wallace Beery, and Boris Karloff. K-51 Spies at War is a 5-page strip written and drawn by Will Eisner, and this is his Spy War series, and features the first appearance of Claire Connors, Z19. Spark Stevens is a 7-page strip written and drawn by Bob Kane. And Belly Busters is a short cartoon humor strip from writer-artist Jerry Iger. And there is a promotional ad for Wonder World Comics number 3 coming out next month. All-American Comics number 3, June 1939, published by DC Comics. This was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman number 1 from DC Comics. The on-sale date was April 25th, 1939. M.C. Gaines was listed as the managing editor, with Sheldon Mayer as the assistant editor. This issue features Hop Harrigan on the cover, drawn by Sheldon Mayer. John Quigley, Lou Gehrig, and Ralph Flanagan appear in the All-American Champs 1-page sports nonfiction strip written and drawn by Walter Galley. Scribbly returns in a 4-page strip from writer-artist Sheldon Mayer and features the first appearances of Ma Hunkel, Huey Hunkel, and Sisty Hunkel. There is a 1-page promotional ad for Movie Comics. Hop Harrigan appears in a 4-page story written and drawn by John L. Blummer under the alias John Elby. And John Elby was born May 14th, 1904, lived until October 1955. After working on various pulp magazines, John Elby started making comic art in 1939, starting with the syndicated newspaper strip The Lone Ranger. His most famous creation is the Hop Harrigan War comic that began the same year. The feature first appeared in All-American Comics issue number 1 and later became a long-running radio serial. In 1941, he graphically created Fighting Yank in Nedor's Startling Comics. This series was later drawn by Jack Binder. For National and DC Comics, he created Ultraman, Captain X of the RAF, and Little Boy Blue. In 1944 and 45, he worked with Franz Stryker on the syndicated The Sea Hound feature. Up until the mid-50s, he contributed to the ACG titles Adventures into the Unknown and Forbidden Worlds. By then, he was using pen names like John Elby and Don Shelby. Adventures in the Unknown is a 6-page strip written by Carl Claudy with art by Stan Ashmeyer in this early science fiction comic strip featuring the characters Alan Kane and Ted Dolliver. The artist Stanley Ashmeyer was born in 1911, living until 1992. He created Dr. Midnight, Johnny Thunder, and YZ. Stan Ashmeyer, sometimes credited as Stan Ash, was an artist and inker for National Periodical Publications, later DC Comics. Along with writer Charles Reisenstein, Stan helped to create the Golden Age character of Dr. Midnight. Credited as Stan Josephs, he illustrated Johnny Thunder for Flash Comics. A large feature comic, number 3, Hey-Yo Silver the Lone Ranger, June 1939, published by Dell Comics. This is a 10-cent cover price, but there's also a 15-cent cover price variant version of this book. The first 9 issues of this book were released with heavy, rough stock covers. This was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman #1 from DC Comics. The Lone Ranger is a fictional masked former Texas Ranger who fought outlaws in the American Old West with his Native American friend Tonto. The character has been called an enduring icon of American culture. He first appeared in 1933 on radio, and the radio show would be such a hit that he eventually moved to TV in 1949 and was featured in comic books and several movies. Movie Comics number 3, June 1939, published by DC Comics. This comic features the first appearance of movie singing star Bing Crosby in comic books. The editor of this issue was C. Elbert, with Sheldon Mayer listed as assistant and M.C. Gaines as the managing editor. This was on the newsstand at the same time as Superman #1 from DC Comics. This book was given the coveted Gerber White Space in his photojournal guide, receiving a scarcity rating of 8. There's a Davis Crippen D-copy pedigree of this book and a Lost Valley pedigree copy. The cover features Mexicali Rose, with art airbrushed corrections by Jack Adler and Sheldon Mayer. And it features the first cover appearance of Gene Autry. East Side of Heaven is an 8-page strip based on the movie. Features photos of Bing Crosby, Joan Blondell, C. Aubrey Smith, and Bing Crosby plays a singing cab driver who finds an abandoned baby in his cab. Mexicali Rose is a 6-page strip based on the movie featuring Gene Autry and Smiley Burnett. Four Feathers is a 7-page strip based on that movie and features Ralph Richardson, John Clements, and Joan Duprez. Mystery in the White Room is an 8-page strip based on that movie featuring photos of Bruce Cabot and Helen Mack. Spirit of Culver is a 5-page strip based on that movie featuring photos of Jackie Cooper, Freddie Bartholomew, and Andy Devine. The Mikado is a 4-page story based on the original play by Sir Arthur Sullivan and features photos of Kenny Baker as Nanki Poo. Navy Secrets is an 8-page strip, a spy movie featuring photos of Carol Evans, who is played by Fay Ray, and Steve Roberts. Star Ranger Funnies, Volume 2, Number 3, June 1939, published by Centaur Publications. A Red Bull funny cover is drawn by Martin Filchok. This comic was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman #1 from DC Comics. Bad Medicine is a 3-page story drawn by Jack Cole. And Jack Cole is also the writer-artist on Home in the Ozarks, a 4-page strip. Funny Pages, Volume 3, Number 4. June 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This is a New York World's Fair 1939 cover by Jack Cole. This was released the same time as DC Comics' New York World's Fair Annual with Superman, and this was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman #1 from DC Comics. There's a Mile High pedigree copy of this book. It went on sale officially on April 27th, 1939. Bob Colby is featured in a 3-page story drawn by Paul Gustafson, which is reprinted from Funny Pages number 14. And the superhero, The Arrow, appears in a 6-page strip written and drawn by Paul Gustafson in this early superhero comic strip, which would be reprinted in The Arrow #1 in 1940. Star Comics, Volume 2, Number 5, June 1939, published by Centaur Publications. A funny bear chases kids on the cover. This issue is on the newsstands at the same time as Superman #1 from DC Comics. Homer Butts is a 4-page strip written and drawn by Paul Gustafson. Diana Dean in Hollywood is a 4-page strip written and drawn by Tarpe Mills. Last Pirate is 4 pages from writer-artist Carl Burgos in his adventure tale. Dash of the 100th Century is a 2-page strip written and drawn by Ed Wood in this science fiction humor strip. Speed Silvers appears in 6 pages from writer-artist Paul Gustafson. Amazing Mystery Funnies, Volume 2, Number 6, June 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This issue is a Bill Everett shot production that predates Marvel Comics number 1, with Bill Everett himself credited with the cover art, featuring Air Sub DX. Everett Skyrocket Steele, the Buck Rogers-like star of the early run of the book, ended his run with this issue to make room for the next issue's Phantom of the Fair. There is a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this book. This issue was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman number 1 from DC Comics. Air Sub DX is featured on the cover in this early science fiction comic cover drawn by Bill Everett. Skyrocket Steel appears in a 5-page strip and another science fiction strip. The Air Sub DX strip is 6 pages, written and drawn by Carl Burgos in this early science fiction tale, which would be reprinted in Phantom Man number 2 in 1940. Tim Roberts is a 6-page story, which would be reprinted in Masked Marvel number 1 in 1940. Dave Dean is a 6-page strip written by Norman Daniels with art by Fred Guardineer, featuring the first appearances of Dave Dean and Shorty. And this originally came from Funny Pages, Volume 2, Number 1 in 1937. Keen Detective Funnies, Volume 2, Number 6, June 1939, published by Centaur Publications. The on-sale date of this issue is April 28, 1939. There is a mile-high pedigree copy of this book. He was on sale on the newsstands at the same time as Superman number 1 from DC Comics. Dean Denton is featured on the cover and in an 8-page story with art by Harry Francis Campbell. And Harry Campbell was born in 1898. Harry Campbell, who also worked under the pen name Harrison Camp, worked on comic books in the late 30s and early 40s through Funnies, Inc. He did art on features like Dean Denton and The Kind of Darkness for Centaur Comics and contributed text editions to Eastern Color and David McKay. He was writer and artist on several features for Hillman periodicals, Novelty Comics, and Quality Comics. Dan Dennis FBI is a 6-page comic strip written and drawn by Sam Gilman. And Sam Gilman was born February 5th, 1915, living until December 3rd, 1985. Sam Gilman was an American actor who worked as a comic book artist through Funnies, Inc. from 1939 to 42. Gilman has illustrated several features for Centaur Comics, including Dan Dennis FBI, Iron Skull, Masked Marvel, Vapo Man, and world-famous heroes. He eventually turned to acting and starred in several films with Marlon Brando, such as The Wild One and The Young Lions. Crane of Scotland Yard is a 4-page comic strip written and drawn by Paul Gustafson. It would be reprinted later in Masked Marvel number 2 in 1940. Dave Dean is a 6-page strip written by Norman Daniels with art by Fred Guardineer and is reprinted from Funny Pages Volume 2 number 3 from 1937. Captain Steve Ransom is a 7-page strip written and drawn by Arthur Hoffman and would be reprinted in Phantom Man number 3 in 1940. Muss 'Em Up is 7 pages written and drawn by Will Eisner in this crime tale featuring Hammer Donovan and Captain Spencer and is reprinted from Detective Pictures Stories number 4 from 1937. Gabby Flynn is a 6-page strip written and drawn by Ken Ernst featuring Gabby Flynn and would be reprinted in Phantom Man number 2 in 1940. The writer-artist Kenneth Ernst was born in 1918, living until 1985. Known professionally as Ken Ernst, an American comic book strip artist. He's most notable for his work on the popular and long-running comic strip Mary Worth from 1942 to 1985. Single series number 7, Frankie Doodle, June 1939, published by United Features Syndicate. Frankie Doodle is featured on the cover. There is also a 15-cent variant cover version of this book. It was on sale on the newsstands at the same time as Superman number 1 from DC Comics. Frankie Doodle appears in 65 pages of comic strips written and drawn by Ben Batsford in this issue, The Adventures of a Young Boy Living in the 1930s. Frankie Doodle, originally called The Doodle Family, is an American comic strip that ran from 1934 to 38, created by Ben Batsford. Frankie was the main character. Ben Batsford was an American cartoonist born on June 5, 1893 in Canada. He worked for the Winnipeg Free Press as an editorial cartoonist. He served in France during World War I. After the war, he moved to America and became a police reporter. In 1921, he created the strip Billy's Uncle, which was syndicated by George Matthew Adams Service until 1926. After that, he joined the King Features Syndicate. Jumbo Comics number 8, June 1939, published by Fiction House. This is the third comic book on the newsstands this month with a cover dedicated to the 1939 New York World's Fair. Gerber gives this issue an 8. Oversized comic. This could not be graded by CGC. This is the last oversized issue of this run. There's a mile-high pedigree copy of this book. It's the final oversized issue, which went on sale April 6th, 1939. At this time, the editor was Malcolm Reese, Will Eisner was the art director, and Jerry Iger was the feature editor. The first 8 issues were printed in black and white and in tabloid oversize 10.5 by 14.5 inches. It was on sale on the newsstands at the same time as Superman number 1 from DC Comics, and parts of this issue were reprinted from the Wags UK comic from Editor's Press Service, including issues number 50, 72, 83, 84, and 54. Hawks, Wilton, Sheena, and Bobby are featured on the cover, drawn by Lou Fine and Will Eisner. Peter Pup appears in a 4-page story written and drawn by Bob Kane, reprinted from Wags UK, number 52. Hawks of the Seas is a 4-page story from writer-artist Will Eisner, and this is reprinted from Wags UK, number 87. Uncle Otto is a short strip from writer-artist Will Eisner, a humor strip featuring 2 silent strips. Bobby is a 2-page strip from writer-artist Jerry Iger, and this is his child humor tale, and is likely reprinted from Wags UK. Heroes of Sport is a short strip drawn by Will Eisner under the alias Irwin, and comes from Universal Phoenix Features, and features some sports celebrities like Ben Johnson, Mega Taylor, Joe Louis, and Kitty Rawls. Pee-wee is a short strip, humor for children, written and drawn by Jerry Iger, featuring the character Pee-wee from Universal Features, dated 1937. The Count of Monte Cristo is a 4-page strip drawn by Lou Fine under the alias Jack Cortez. This strip does not appear in the next 2 issues of Jumbo Comics. It is reprinted from Wags Australia edition, volume 3, number 27. Just Laughs is a short strip written and drawn by Bob Kane from Universal Phoenix Features. ZX5, Spies in Action, is a 3-page story, possibly written by Will Eisner, and is reprinted from Wags UK, number 74. The Diary of Dr. Hayward is a 4-page strip drawn by Lou Fine. Wilton of the West is 3 pages, also drawn by Lou Fine, a Western Frontier strip from Universal Phoenix Features. Sheena strip is 4 pages from artist Bob Powell and is reprinted from Wags UK number 82 from 1938. Crackajack Funnies, number 12, June 1939, published by Dell Comics. The on-sale date was April 25th, 1939. It's a cat and bird cage humor cover. It was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman number 1 from DC Comics. Gerber's photojournal rates this book as uncommon, and there's a mile-high pedigree copy of this book. Red Ryder appears in a 4-page strip drawn by Fred Harmon. Tom Mix is in 4 pages from artist Jim Chambers. Speedbolt and Air Ace is in 4 pages from artist Al McWilliams, featuring the characters Dr. Wu and Prince Chang Li. And Don Winslow returns in a 4-page strip written by Lieutenant Commander Frank V. Martinek, USNR. Action Comics number 13, June 1939, published by DC Comics. This is the 4th Superman cover appearance ever. Issues 1, 7, and 10 were the only previous Superman covers, and the character did not become the permanent cover star until later, starting with issue number 19. The on-sale date of number 13 was April 24th, 1939. This is the first month that Superman ever appeared in more than one comic book at the same time, and he also appeared on more than one cover, appearing in Superman number 1 and New York World's Fair 1939 one-shot. That's 3 comics all at the same time featuring Superman. He was now officially the best-selling character in all of comic books being published, and record sales were being hit by each issue of Action Comics selling better than the previous month. Superman number 1 was the best-selling comic book of the month, with 3 printings combined, followed by Action Comics number 13, which was now outselling Famous Funnies month to month. Superman is featured on the cover, drawn by Joe Shuster. Superman is featured in a 13-page strip from the team of Siegel and Schuster, featuring the characters Superman, Clark Kent, Carlisle, and the villains Reynolds, and the first appearance of Ultra Humanite. Superman decides to wage war against the Cab Protective League, a firm trying to victimize the independent cab companies. But when he thinks the situation has been resolved, he comes to face a new threat, the Ultra Humanite, a foe who gained from a scientific experiment the most agile and learned brain on Earth, a foe who seeks to dominate the world. Superman #1 was on sale May 18th. New York World's Fair was on sale April 29th. All on the newsstands at the same time. George Taylor is first named in May 1939 in the newspaper strip, and the S symbol first appears on Superman's cape. Superman is overcome by a sheet of flame and states that he nearly perished in a burning cabin in this story. Scoop Scanlon, 5-star reporter, is a 6-page strip drawn by Will Eli. This is the last appearance of this strip, and it's printed in red, black, and white. Pep Morgan returns in a 6-page strip from writer Gardner Fox with art by Fred Guardineer under the alias Gene Baxter. Tex Thompson is a 10-page strip drawn by Bernard Bailey, featuring the villain Ace of Spades. Zatara the Master Magician is in a 12-page strip written by Gardner Fox, art by Fred Guardineer, and Zatara has its 13th appearance. Super Comics number 13, June 1939, published by Dell Comics. The on-sale date was May 9th, 1939. There is a Dell Comics file copy of this book, with file copy written across the front cover in blue pencil. This issue was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman #1 from DC Comics. Dick Tracy appears in a 4-page story written and drawn by Chester Gould in the classic detective mystery strip. And Terry and the Pirates appears in a 4-page strip written and drawn by Milton Caniff. Comics on Parade number 15, June 1939, published by United Features Syndicate. This was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman #1 from DC Comics. There is a Davis Crippen D-copy pedigree copy of this book in existence. Lil Abner is featured on the cover and also in a 5-page story drawn by Al Capp. The Beast of Tarzan is a 4-page strip written by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Wayne Webster is a 3-page text story written by John Paul Fredericks with art by Paul Berdanier in this sports story. And Alice in Wonderland appears in a short story written by Olive Ray Scott with art by Ed Kookies in this adventure fantasy supernatural story based on the classic novel. Ace Comics number 27, June 1939, published by David McKay Publications. It features a Joe Musial cover. The Katzenjammer Kids are appearing on the cover, and this issue is on the newsstands at the same time as Superman #1 from DC Comics. Jungle Jim appears in a 4-page story drawn by Alex Raymond. Sea and Stars is a 1-page story drawn by Feg Murray featuring celebrity movie stars such as Shirley Temple, Norma Shearer, Warner Baxter, and Fred Astaire. Prince Valiant appears in a 4-page story drawn by Hal Foster. The Phantom returns in a 4-page story written by Lee Falk with art by Ray Moore in this adventure jungle superhero tale. Sea and Stars appears again, this time with art by Feg Murray featuring the movie stars Gary Cooper, Alice Faye. Detective Comics number 28, June 1939, published by DC Comics. This is the second appearance ever of Batman. Batman did not make the cover except for a blurb, but he was the lead feature in this book. The story of the Batman was the second and last to be signed Robert Kane. Fred Guardineer is the cover artist of this early issue. There is a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this book in existence. This book was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman #1 from DC Comics. The Batman appears in a 6-page story written by Bill Finger with art by Bob Kane in this early superhero strip featuring the Batman, Bruce Wayne, Commissioner James Gordon, Gimpy, the police stool pigeon, Kelly, another policeman, the villain Frenchie Blake, and Blake's gang. Using information obtained from a police stool pigeon, the Batman sets aim on one Frenchie Blake, leader of a notorious jewel theft ring. Just a Second is a short cartoon drawn by Bob Kane, also in this issue. Dopering is a 6-page story in Speed Saunders' Ace Investigator drawn by Fred Guardineer with drug references. Spy is a 6-page story from the team of Siegel and Schuster featuring the character Bart Regan. The Crimson Avenger is an early superhero, and he appears in 6 pages from writer-artist Jim Chambers. Dr. Fu Manchu returns in 4 pages from writer Sax Romer with art possibly by Leo O'Mealia. Slam Bradley is a 13-page strip from the team of Siegel and Schuster featuring Slam Bradley and Shorty Morgan in their detective mystery strip. The Funnies, number 32, June 1939, published by Dell Comics. The on-sale date of this issue was May 16th, 1939. It was on the newsstands at the same time as Superman number 1 from DC Comics. There is a Dell Comics file copy of this issue. The cover features the strip Out Our Way. John Carter of Mars appears in a 4-page story written by Edgar Rice Burroughs in this early science fiction strip. The Crime Busters is 4 pages from artist Al McWilliams. The Ghost of Winter Ranch is a 4-page Western story featuring singing cowboy Gene Autry. The Capture of Bookie Joe is a 3-page text story about Dick Tracy. The Wonderland of Oz returns in 3 pages from artist Walt Spouse, based on the popular book series The Wizard of Oz. Tip Top Comics, number 38, June 1939, published by United Features Syndicate. The Cats and Jammer Kids take their turn on the cover of this long-running title, which is continually one of the most best-selling comics on the newsstands. Along with Tarzan and Little Abner, the kids dominated the covers for the first several years. There is a Mile High pedigree copy of this book, as well as a Rockford pedigree copy in existence. Adventure Comics number 39, June 1939, published by DC Comics. According to Overstreet, this issue has the first mention of marijuana in comic books. This is the last pre-superhero issue. There's a Mile High pedigree copy of this book. The cover features art by John Richard Flanagan and features Africans and a man tied to the stake. This is reprinted from Radio Funnies' Ashcan from March 1939. Cotton Carver is a 6-page story written by Gardner Fox with art by George Newman in this adventure strip featuring the first appearance of the characters Vosgoth and Dagon. Federal Men is a 4-page strip from the team of Siegel and Schuster featuring the marijuana story and the first appearance of the villain, who is a custodian. Cinema Dust is a 1-page cartoon drawn by Sheldon Moldoff, featuring famous characters such as Walt Disney, W.C. Fields, Clark Gable, Joe E. Brown, and Charles Lawton. Batter Up is a 1-page cartoon, a humor strip written and drawn by Paul Gustafson. Steve Malone is in a 6-page story from writer Gardner Fox with art by Don Lynch, a detective mystery strip. Tidbits is a 1-page cartoon nonfiction strip from Sheldon Moldoff drawing Joe Lewis and Harvey Albach Jr. Tom Brent is a 6-page story written and drawn by Jim Chambers. This is the last appearance of this strip, which also features the first appearance and death of the villain Hong. Rusty and His Pals is a 4-page strip written and drawn by Bob Kane, an adventure strip featuring Ebenezer, Slade, and Long Sin as the villains. Anchors Away is 5 pages written and drawn by Fred Guardineer, featuring a nut, who is the villain who gets eaten by an alligator. There is a promotional ad for Movie Comics and All American Comics. King Comics number 39, June 1939, published by David McKay Publications. The cover features Popeye playing baseball. This is still one of the best-selling comics on the newsstands each month. Popular Comics number 40, June 1939, published by Dell Comics. It went on sale May 2nd, 1939. There is a Mile High pedigree copy of this book. Tex Thorne is a 4-page strip drawn by Al McHale, also known as Albert McHale, and this features the characters Tex Thorne and Jane Hoskins. Mr. Wong is a 4-page story drawn by Jim Gary. Tarzan appears in a 3-page text story. Gangbusters is in 4 pages from artist Jim Gary, and this would be reprinted in 4-color number 7 in 1940. Ben-Hur is a 4-page strip drawn by Irwin Hess based on the historical drama story. More Fun Comics number 44, June 1939, published by DC Comics, on sale April 28th, 1939. This was on the newsstand at the same time as Superman number 1. There is a Mile High pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. The cover art is by Craig Fussell, featuring 2 guys versus an octopus. Miska Jones Jr. is a 1-page humor strip from writer-artist Bob Kane. This is the only appearance of this strip. Johnny Law is 4 pages from writer-artist Will Eli and his Detective Mystery, and this is the last appearance of this strip. Radio Squad returns in 6 pages from Siegel and Schuster in their Detective Mystery, featuring the villain, the Invisible Terror. And Buccaneer is 5 pages, written and drawn by Bernard Bailey, featuring the villain, Dr. Killman. Mickey Mouse Magazine number 45, Volume 4, number 9, June 1939, published by Western Publishing. Mickey Mouse is holding a gun on the cover. Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse Sunday reprints begin in this issue. The Pointer story is based on the Disney short feature, which was nominated for an Academy Award. This issue went on sale May 5th, 1939. Famous Funnies, number 59, June 1939, published by Eastern Color. This was still the longest-running monthly comic book series to date and had been the best-selling comic every month until just recently when the popularity of Superman in Action Comics overtook the sales. There is a Lost Valley pedigree copy of this book. The cover art is by Victor Pazmino, featuring the characters Jitters and Big Chief Wahoo. Buck Rogers returns in a 4-page story written by Phil Nolan with art by Dick Calkins in this early classic science fiction strip. And Jerry Iger writes and draws his 1-page strip, Queenie.